G'day, it's Robbie again. Well, I've had a few requests lately about videos on brazing, doing more of them, so today we'll do another job, and I'm brazing this, bronze brazing this nut which I've drilled out onto the end of this handle. I want to extend this handle. This was on something else and I had to cut it off, and it went into the job, so we've got to lengthen it again. Try and do a neat job of it. It goes on a gate, and a side gate, so we're going to lengthen it by the same diameter with some old bolts I've got. So I've drilled them to that diameter, slightly bigger, doesn't really matter, and I'm going to braze the nut to the handle, and that will extend it, and we go into the square section that is the frame of the gate, and I can just run a bit of arc along two of the flats to hold everything in place, and it should look quite neat. But I don't want to try and arc the nut on because it will do a pretty shit looking job, you know. Whereas if you do it with bronze, if you braze the work, you can get a nice finish. Now the only trick to this one is, of course, you've got to mount it so everything's lined up correctly. Insulate it, so we've insulated it pretty well. That bit of pipe won't take much out. And from the brazing perspective, the only trick to this whole thing is when you drill your hole to put your handle in, the job, well, you don't want just that plain flat square end on the job. What you want to do is run a countersink into it. Just countersink it slightly, and that way when you do your brazing job, it will form a ring around in that little cavity. It'll make a far neater job. If you just have it going straight into a drilled hole, your braze has got a good chance of flowing all over the face of the work. Whereas if you countersink it, you can actually run it into the countersink, keep everything nice and level, and it should do a clean job. So that's what we're going to do. Now I was going to do this job originally with a 2.4mm rod. That's manganese bronze. But I think I'll go to the smaller 1.6, and that way you can get the end of the rod in that little chamfer more easily, and it should make the work a little bit cleaner. So you can please yourself with these sort of jobs, but these are the two rod sizes I use, and you don't want it too big, otherwise it's too hard to control the flow of the bronze and finish up with it going everywhere. Because you don't need a hell of a lot of bronze, you know. The rule with bronze is the thinner the bronze, the stronger the actual brazing job will be. So as you thicken the filler, the depth of the filler, you actually make the job weaker. To get the strongest brazing job you have is a tight fit, but not totally snug. You've got to have room for the bronze to capillate down between the two faces of the job and its partner. But you don't want it too big, otherwise it will lose a bit of its guts. Alright, we'll get on with it. Once again, we're using dipping flux. I don't like coated rods, I've said this a million times. With dipping flux you can put on just the amount of flux you want. So you heat the job up to just a bit before melt temperature for the bronze. Dip your rod in your flux, put on what you want, work it around and give it time to do the job, and then after you've got your flux all set and applied, then you melt your rod on. that should do a pretty good job. That's how you want it. Now you could water quench that, it wouldn't really matter, but I'll let it cool down a bit first. I don't know how much carbon's in those bolts. They were just some junky old bolts I had laying around I want to get rid of. So when it loses a bit of the red, I'll dunk it in some water and we can have a good look at it. Right, so there's the finished job. That's one end done. Looks pretty okay to me. So, yeah, we can either use a nut on this or a steel plate, or I can just put a bit of tack on one of the flat each side. But anyway, made a pretty neat job of it. That was close to the maximum that the bullfinch can handle as far as mass goes. So, you know, it depends on, you know, wall thickness, the mass, as to how much you can braze, you know, what size jobs you can do with just plain LPG with that torch. But if you want to go bigger than this, you can easily just use a second standard torch on it, and that basically preheats it, and then you go in with the bullfinch and just do the brazing with the bullfinch. So you basically run two torches on it, but once again you're only using LPG. Cost absolute peanuts to do this, and yeah, most of the time they only work on small stuff anyway. There you go, all done, job complete. Turned out quite nice. Made a pretty neat job of it. That's pretty even. So that should pull up nicely. Yeah. Alright, that's it. Job done. Time for a beer. See you next time. Cheers.